Conversations from the front lines of recruiting. This is Hireside Chats. Join us as we delve into the world of recruitment and explore the latest trends, challenges, opportunities, and insights from the best in the business. Get inspired by industry veterans and discover the secrets to building powerful talent functions from their experiences. Whether you're a CEO, a seasoned HR professional, a growing business looking to scale, or someone just starting in the field, there's something for everyone. Ready for the ultimate recruitment power-up? Let's go!
Hello, this is your host SatJ, and welcome to another episode of Hireside Chats, a Diamondpick exclusive podcast that brings together insights, news, and views from the front lines of recruiting. I hope you enjoy this episode, and let's get straight into it. The focus lights are on, cameras are rolling, and millions of eyes are glued to the televisions. The 16th season of the Indian Premier League has started, and we are in for a 2-month-long fanfare, celebrated like an annual festival by cricket fans the world over. The IPL has entered India's cultural calendar like no other sporting event, with a spectacular display of performance by the different teams. Amidst all this frenzy, cricket teams and team leaders are strategizing to play their best game. A big part of the IPL's team's successes rises from sourcing the right players, complete coordination, strong communication, relationship building, and of course, having the right leadership at the right roles. A closer look at the IPL reveals some of the best business lessons that leaders can leverage. And here to talk to us about the lessons we can learn from the IPL, sports, and the entertainment industry is Ram Ramanathan, founder and CEO of Fandom Sports and Entertainment, a super cool entertainment and sports firm based in Los Angeles. He was the first to launch the IPL 11 years ago in emerging markets outside India. And his company now represents some of the biggest names in the sports, music, and movie industry in North America and Asia. His other ventures include Desh Vegas, which is all about exclusive live experiences, designated as a signature annual event on the Las Vegas calendar, and Ingene Corporation, which helps media and entertainment companies with D2C, digital, and emerging market strategies. Ram's journey is pretty interesting. He started out as a technology specialist and business leader at Cognizant, where he led industry defining engagements with marquee names in the show business. Then he pivoted to the industry side, leading digital business innovation at Warner Music Group, News Corp, and Amazon. All of that led him to his incredible journey as an entrepreneur. It's safe to say he's someone who knows what he's doing when it comes to entertainment, sports, and technology. Cricket fans or not, join the conversation for some interesting insights on the power of fandom in the media and entertainment industry. Hello, Ram. Welcome to our IPL special episode of Hireside Chats.
Thanks, Satish. Great to be here.
Ram, I know it's really late for you out there at Las Vegas, but I'm really happy that you've joined us. Let me quickly begin by asking you this. What do you think makes the IPL so special compared to all other professional leagues around the world?
It's a great question, right? Because there are like almost, by the latest count, about 9 or 10 different T20 leagues world over. But I mean, the reason IPL really kind of stands out is, I think, number one, it has to be the fans. Because everything about the IPL is that fever pitch, whether it's outside or inside the stadium, at the hotel, the practice sessions, the meet and greets, long before the game has even started. The buzz that you see among the fans in India, it just cannot be manufactured. It's organic, it's inimitable, whether it's in Chennai or Mumbai or wherever Chennai Super Kings goes. It's like a fan festival, and it's not very dissimilar to what we saw at the World T20 game at MCG when the Indian fans showed up. I think that's really one thing that adds to the aura of the IPL. The other big thing is just the supersized stage that the IPL provides. because all the performances are amplified exponentially. And irrespective of how many leagues that the players play in, they want to give their best and come out the best in the IPL, right? But the most important thing, what the IPL's nailed is the experience. It's entertainment meeting sports. It keeps people riveted to their seats. If I were to kind of compare it to um, a Major League Baseball or an NFL game here, like people would watch the game for like 15, 20 minutes, and then they'll go to pick up a hot dog and a beer and be away for 20 minutes and then come back to their seats and they wouldn't have missed much. But if you miss 20, 25 minutes in an IPL game, that's a whole lot of action that you missed. And for a product to really keep people riveted to their seats and not have them move around, that's truly something special. I think that's what makes IPL the awesome spectacle that it has been. It's made for the fans, by the fans, and it absolutely knocks it out of the park on delivering a unique experience.
Great, I totally agree with you. One's always intrigued by what doesn't meet the eye. So, I want to ask you this. What's it like behind the scenes to pull off an IPL season? I know you've been involved in several behind the scenes events. So, no better person to give us a sneak preview of what's it like being behind the scenes and pull off such a big spectacle.
I'm not going to sugarcoat it. I have one word for it. It's Jugaad. It's season 16, and it still feels like season 1. Every season is season 1 for IPL. I call it organized chaos. Imagine a 1,000-foot cruise ship that's docked in the ocean for 9 months in a year, and then it's activated just in time for its trip and has to zip around at like 100 knots, which is 5 times the speed that it can go around at. And that's basically what you have with the IPL. It's a state-of-the-art mothership. It's like 100 speedboats that are launched to get stuff done in 4 weeks, what will usually take 4 months, right? It's I kind of liken this to every game being like one big Indian wedding. A lot of last-minute suspense. All you're guaranteed is the bride and the groom will show up, which are the teams in this case, right? Everyone else burns the midnight oil, but come time for the ceremony, everyone shows up at their best attire, and it's the best spectacle that it can be. And that's really the beauty of IPL. I cannot imagine this happening in any other center. I'll give you an example here, right? In 2014, the BCCI decided at 2 weeks' notice that the IPL is going to be played in UAE, the first 5 games, because of the elections. And I was there the afternoon before the first game in Abu Dhabi, and being at the stadium, I mean, everything looked so underprepared. There were like 3 or 4 guys lazily painting the sponsor logos on either side of the pitch, and then the boundary boards and all the electronic equipment were heaped up on the middle of the field, and there's not much activity happening around there. And I left the stadium at like 6 p.m. thinking, how the hell is the game going to happen tomorrow? Because it is a 12 o'clock start. And lo and behold, I show up at 10:30 the next morning, and everything was in place on deck, and the crowd was there. The atmosphere was there. It was almost like you were in one of the stadiums in Chennai. And that's what the IPL kind of brings to the table. It's a robust ecosystem, everything from the broadcast to the digital marketing to the event management, logistics. It's specialists who descend at the 11th hour and just cruise through it very calmly, right? So if you're involved in IPL behind the scenes, yes, your life expectancy will be shortened a little bit, both watching the game and being behind it. But it's absolutely fascinating to see all of it come together. I would say that the IPL is one gigantic, well-oiled setup that's a startup at heart. Nimble, agile, and dare I say, just in time.
Brilliant. So I'm sure you'll agree with me that IPL is not just about the two teams and the players, but it's actually enabled careers for several people who are involved in the sport. So what I would like to ask you here is, someone who's considering a career in general in the sports media and entertainment industry, what would be your recommendation? And do you think it's a good idea if you can share some thoughts to our listeners here?
In a heartbeat. I mean, there's absolutely no second thoughts on that. As a 25, 30-year old, if I had the chance to be part of this industry and be part of this experience, I'd have given my right arm for it, right? Just given the amount of opportunities that are there, just the sphere of influence, the exposure, the energy, and the empowerment that the youngsters these days get in being behind the IPL. It's really inspiring to see. I mean, they're the engine that drives the industry, and it's not just the IPL, right? It's just broadly sports in general. And also, if you look at media and entertainment, with broadcasting and event management and everything that's going on, it's youngsters that have really kind of stepped into it. They learn a lot on the job. They get the mentoring. They get the opportunities. So I think it really bodes well for up and coming talent.
Great. So, before we jump on to some serious stuff, let me ask you a trivia. What is your most memorable live IPL moment?
I think this is probably going to get me in trouble with someone or the other, but I'll talk about it. I'm trying to remember the year.
I think it was 2018.
The first year that CSK was back from their hiatus, and it's the opening game of the IPL, the El Clasico, Chennai versus Mumbai at Wankhede. And incidentally, that was the year where we were bringing Rohit Sharma over to the US for a tour. So when I'd met him before the game, we talked about the tour and everything. And then he was asking, hey, you should come for the game. And I said, yeah, I am going to be there. And he basically said, well, just don't come with a Chennai Super Kings jersey, right?
I said, yeah, of course. And on the day of the game, I had to go hunting for a Team India jersey because that's the most neutral thing that I could think of. And we headed over to the stadium, and my wife was accompanying me. It was her first IPL game, and she's a huge Dhoni fan. And at the Wankhede in the Garvare Pavilion, there are 4 sections. And our seats was smack in the middle section with the MI contingent to our right and the CSK contingent to our left. My wife is having the time of her life, thoroughly enjoying the game, the atmosphere. And here I was sitting like an MCC member at the Lodge, just quietly applauding both the teams, not able to show much emotion. And towards the end of the game, it looked like MI was cruising to a win. And we said, well, let's go check the food scene. And that's when Bravo decided to go nuts. One of the best counter-attacking innings I've seen anybody play. 8 wickets down, backs against the wall. He was belting the ball all over the park. And that's when all the decorum went out of the window and the fan in me came out. Till date, I think that's one of the best live IPL experiences that I've been.
That was fun. And, I would have written off my entire property to you to basically take your spot there. So, I can imagine what you would have experienced.
I haven't spoken to you about the World T20 game, India versus Pakistan. So what did you give me for that?
Okay, so now let's get to know you a little better, Ram. You're doing some very interesting things in the media and entertainment space. Tell us a little bit about the industry, what you do, and how your companies Fandom, Desh Vegas, and Ingene came into being.
Sure. I mean, media and entertainment has always been close to my heart. I always saw myself as a creative guy, but then I started as a programmer and a coder, and I couldn't wait to get out of it, right? So I picked the quickest path that I could to become an architect so I could tell others how to code. But as far as media and entertainment is concerned, I mean, I had the first opportunities at Cognizant, and then I kind of spent the last 20 plus years in media and entertainment. What's really been appealing about the industry is it's always been at the leading edge of digital transformation, whether you talk about direct to consumer, digital experience. It's kind of been the lighthouse for all industry verticals. And it's truly been a place where technology drives innovation, right? I mean, look at the examples like Apple. What Apple did to disrupt the music industry with iTunes in 2004. That was the first time we started talking about digital. And by the time it was 2008, the music industry had taken a shellacking and they had to adapt themselves to a completely new business model, right? To adapt to the digital way of doing things. And then Netflix followed, right? And then everyone else has been talking about digital innovation and transformation, and they still talk about it, right? But media and entertainment has always been at the leading edge of it. And the other thing is all the innovations in media and entertainment actually touch the end consumer. So you can actually see it come to life. So the industry constantly has to reinvent itself. And well, it's sexy too, right? Meanwhile, pharma's blazing the trail, digitizing clinical trials. That's not too exciting for me. I'm sorry to put you on the spot with your pharma clients, but it's I would say that's kind of sums it up for media and entertainment, right? It's like putting Friends and Big Bang Theory together. Beat that.
Okay, so I can see why you're so passionate about the media and entertainment space. So, what sparked your move to the entrepreneurial side, Ram? And can you tie it back to what you would like talent and talent leaders to hear from your own personal experience?
I can trace it back to two distinct inflection points in my career. Early on at Cognizant, I was very fortunate to work with leaders who didn't take a very templated approach to talent management and were willing to place potential over pedigree. Here I was, all of 4.5 years of experience coming out of the eBay engagement where I'd led the technical architecture and delivery, and I was looking to move on to the business side. And Francisco D'Souza, who had just become the COO, gave me the opportunity to come and work directly with him on his Road to $1 Billion initiative, which was reimagining the way Cognizant looked at its internal strategies, operations, and business processes. And his mission for me was to transform HR. Now, on paper, I didn't have the pedigree or the qualifications to take on that assignment, but for him to actually place the faith in my potential, give me the empowerment, the space, and the mentoring needed for me to be successful, that was a huge boost of confidence for me. And I honestly would say that was the first seed of entrepreneurship that was planted in me. I also distinctly remember a conversation I had with Lakshmi, who was then the CEO, and his advice to me was very simple. He said, "You're the best judge of what you need to get into, but always grounded back to what your assessment of your own strengths and gaps are." I took that to heart, and it's always served as a 360-degree perspective for me as I've undertaken any career moves and also my venturing into entrepreneurship. The other more direct catalyst was the Presidential Key Executive MBA that I'd done at Pepperdine, which is more of a cohort-based program with an intimate group of 18 people, 9 from corporate, 9 from entrepreneurs, from a diverse set of industries. So it is really more of the experiential learning. And the first thing that was an eye-opener for me was the ability to be able to step back from your typical comfort zone. In my case, I was a media and entertainment and technology specialist. But the moment you step back from that comfort zone and look at the big picture, to be able to connect the dots across industries and see there are ultimately a common set of business principles that apply across them and how macroeconomic and other factors affect them. That's true business gold for any business leader. The second thing that I found really fascinating was the speed to implementation of ideas. We used to meet monthly discuss and brainstorm ideas and certain concepts that we'd pick. And it was consistently the entrepreneurs who'd come back the next session and have some progress or updates to share on what they'd done. For good or for bad, they'd given a chance, they'd applied the ideas quicker than anyone else had. And that truly was fascinating for someone coming from a traditional corporate setup where you have to go through presentation after presentation, try to convince a multitude of other people on an idea that you're already convinced on. And for all you know, they could die in the committee or die in the vine, right? So that was truly fascinating for me. And all of this kind of culminated in the capstone that I was doing, which was launching a music business in India in an emerging segment, in an emerging market. And it was quickly evident to me that there was a larger reciprocal proposition that is waiting to be done in terms of sports and entertainment properties out of India that had an untapped potential in the international market. And the best way for me to set it up for success and be able to see those ideas come to life was to go the entrepreneurial route, which is what I did. And 6 months from then on, we had the first 3 IPL teams on, and we were quickly on to the live experiences front. So that is truly powerful in terms of what the right ecosystem can do for you. And as a tiny footnote, 6 of those 9 corporate leaders had converted into entrepreneurs by the time we finished the PKE program in 20 months.
Right. And how did that translate into your vision for the ventures that you're running currently?
The core themes for the ventures can be distilled down to the 3 E's, which is exclusive content and unique experiences in emerging markets. And that's how the businesses are organized too. Fandom houses all of our content creation, licensing, and merchandising, including fandomcricket.com, which is our flagship IPL merchandising storefront. It also houses the grassroots sports development, whether it be cricket in North America or baseball coming into India. Desh Vegas houses all of our live experiences properties featuring the top sports and entertainment talent that we represent. The mantra is showcasing the best of young India to a global audience. So that includes the destination Desh Vegas event experience that we're creating, as well as similar experiences in other destinations. Ultimately, all of this needs to be brought together by a sound business and technology strategy, which is where Ingene comes in. And we turn the guts out on what we have been able to successfully do in terms of branding, emerging markets, and digital strategy, and offering it as an advisory and as a service for global entertainment and sports brands, which are looking to do the same.
Sports has always been one of the purest forms of entertainment, unscripted, exciting, and full of drama. Cricket transformed with T20, making it fast and even more exciting, creating a fandom like never before. As consumer demand evolved, so has the sport, and so have the fans. So, Ram, let's talk about this evolution of fan engagement through the years. How has IPL addressed these evolving needs of the fans?
So overall, I think IPL has done a great job of improving the live experience for fans. And then also from a digital social media marketing, I think that's catching up. I'd still say that the offerings are a little too commoditized, right? It's not quite commensurate of a $15 billion brand value property. You need to attract people on brand value. Yes, there's a little bit of the dichotomy that not everyone will be able to pay the top dollars or the top rupees or whatever it is, right? But that's kind of the reality of the Indian market. and we can't paint them with the same brush, right? It can't have a one size fits all approach. That quite doesn't work, not even within the Indian market. And then you kind of look at the global reach. If IPL is looking at it as a global brand, I don't think it quite fits the model. I think that is directly translatable to any organization that is kind of looking at it as a global brand, where you're not just looking at a commodity product, but you're really kind of looking at a value-based branding, right? Um, let me pause here and just to make it a little interactive. Do you want to take a guess of how many countries we've had IPL merchandise sales in?
I would think, let me take a guess, 5, 6,
Can you go a little higher?
15.
A little higher?
Wow. I didn't know so many countries actually followed the sport. 25,
A little higher. Don't short sell IPL, mate.
50.
62.
Wow. Brilliant.
62 countries. 50 countries in year one. And then we added another 12 countries, right? So the IPL brand worldwide is much, much bigger than anybody can even imagine. I think even the people within IPL don't know the full extent of the reach of the IPL brand. I mean, we've had cases wherein there's a family out of UK that bought probably like 5 teams merchandise. We reached out to them and asked what's going on. Like, I mean, and then they were like, when IPL happens, it's like the lady was buying for herself and for her grandson. Her grandson was a Chennai Super Kings fan. She was a Mumbai Indians fan. Her husband was a Kolkata Knight Riders fan, and they had like 5 or 6 different teams within their own family. And she was like, when IPL happens, it's a way, it's an excuse for all of us to come together, and it's a good spirited competition that we have within the families. We all pick one team to root for, and then you have cases like this guy in Hungary, right, who's a bona fide Hungarian. This is not like an expat who's living in Hungary, right? And he just happens to have some friends who play cricket, and he wants to kind of blend into that, and he's adopted one of the IPL teams. This girl out of Utah who became an Ashwin fan when he was back with Chennai Super Kings because one of her school classmates was an Indian origin girl who was rooting for Chennai Super Kings. So you have all these different stories, all these different interconnections, right? So we don't even know the full extent of the reach of a brand like IPL. So I think the biggest risk that a brand can run is to short sell itself by focusing too much on commodity products based on a narrow sliver of the fan base that it deals with. But I think there is a little bit of the hard work that needs to be done in terms of educating the fans in terms of what it takes to build a global brand and to be the fan base for a global brand. It's like I would like to say that there are things that we do because not because it's easy, but because it's right, and that would truly be applicable for any global brand.
Mind blowing, unbelievable. So now let's just shift gears a bit. I'm sure you'll agree with me, Ram, that the IPL team building exercise bears a striking resemblance to new age corporate teams. In both, team dynamics keep changing, and for the teams to perform, it's essential to pick the right candidates or the right players. with the right balance of skills and expertise. Obviously, you need a good captain or a leader who can lead them to success, to victory, and so on. This to me sounds a lot like what we do in talent acquisition and recruitment, doesn't it? So let me just ask you a question here. What are some of the commonalities that you see between the IPL and the talent acquisition process?
Oh, there's a lot of battles between how IPL and sports franchises in general assemble the teams and how talent acquisition functions. If you were to peel the onion, it all starts with the scouting, which is very much a behind the scenes process. And it's one of the most important steps that happens long before the auction table shows up on your TV screens. Because a lot of factors that scouts take into account, which goes into the capability fit, because ultimately you want to have the right balance and people complementing each other. You don't want to have a homogeneous team, and you have a sense of what your playing 11 is, plus or minus three. You know where your strengths and gaps are, and how much of depth or bench strength that you need to build in. So that's one very important input that goes into the scouting and the talent sourcing process that sports teams do. A big thing these days, and IPL teams have gotten really mature in this, is they lay a lot of emphasis on the team chemistry and team culture. Gone are the days when you have divas as individual contributors who can just walk through a team. Those are far and few now. Teams want players to be able to buy into that team culture, because in IPL, the players are brought together and assembled. The team is assembled at just in time for the IPL. So there's not enough time for team building. So you need players who actually can readily fit into that team culture. So there's a lot that goes into the softer aspect of the team dynamics. The one thing that we don't talk about enough is the X factor. There are going to be certain players that give you that consistent performance, and there are going to be those players that give you that X factor, the ability to change the game on its head, whether it's a mystery spinner or that hard-hitting all-rounder. You want those X factors, because if they win you that one or two games in a season, you've made your money's worth out of that, right? And that's something that regular teams would need to have too, because if it's all homogenous, then what are you really getting? Once you pick the team, you want to be able to assimilate them into the team culture that you really wanted them to become part of. But you want to recognize their strengths. You don't want to institutionalize them. It's a big difference between assimilating them into the team culture and institutionalizing them. In the process of doing it, you don't want to neutralize the strength that they actually bring to the team that you really look for in the first place. So from that standpoint, I think it's not a one size fits all, and the role of the captain and the coach becomes really important. And the last thing is the consistency of expectations. You've got to give them enough chances to succeed. It's very important for a leader to be able to go to a talent and say, I've got your back. You have these so many games, so many chances to show your full potential, and I'm going to back you up on it. And that way the talent is not looking over his back all the time, and it gives them the freedom to experiment, the freedom to fail, but know that the leaders got their back. I think all of this is really, really important, and none of what I've talked about here is very different from what you typically have in any team in the industry.
Very well said, and I think some brilliant thoughts there. And I think that kind of leads into my next question, some of which you've already kind of highlighted in your previous response. So, what do you think is the secret sauce behind building the various IPL teams? And do you think they have a strategy that the talent leaders can learn from?
there's quite a bit to take away from how IPL franchises manage their talent, that talent leaders can use in their own domain. If you were to go through the teams, you'll see a very quick pattern emerge. Let's start with CSK. They've always relied on experience and chemistry and having that consistent core. You don't see them chopping and changing the team too much. They rely more on experience. We talked about how the teams come together just in time for a 2-month tournament. So people need to understand and adapt to their roles and know their swim lanes and be able to adapt in match situations. So their strategy has been to invest in experienced players, even if they're going to skew older. And you have in someone like Dhoni, a captain who can actually manage all the egos and get everyone to buy into that team culture. And that's what brings that team together. You see them on the field, you see them harmonious, you don't see any drama. Even if someone has to sit out for a couple of games, they take it in their stride. And that's worked really well for CSK. After all, they won 4 championships, 2 before the Dad's Army and 2 now with the Dad's Army, right? So, and then RCB is enigmatic because for the longest time, they went for flair. They wanted to go make the splash with individual contributors and having all these big name players, which you found it really difficult to get to gel well as a team. But in the last 2 seasons, last season and this one, I see a distinct change in their approach. I think it's getting a little closer to where CSK is in terms of getting these more seasoned players who've got established performances to come together as a team and enjoy playing as a team. And then now you have Kohli as this elder statesman. And in Faf du Plessis, you've got a captain who's very much in the same mold as Dhoni. So I feel that RCB is turning a corner and starting to look a lot more like CSK, and that augurs well for them. I think that makes them really dangerous. That's the team that I'm really looking for this season because I truly think that they have a window now. MI, on the other hand, it's kind of 50-50 in terms of they've always relied on a very solid core that they've invested in, and then they've always invested in youth and building a team for the long run. And that's a completely different strategy from what you've seen with CSK. But MI has 5 titles. Between MI and CSK, they have 9 titles. So clearly, very different strategies, but it has its own results. The key is the teams pick what their strengths are and build the team around it. With KKR and RR, I call them the Moneyball teams. They go for consistency of performance. They rely more on uncapped players who have the potential, and they find a way to take them to their peak potential. And they've built their team and performance around it, and I have a lot of respect for what they've done. And Moneyball is kind of a reference to the Oakland A's when they had this philosophy during the late 90s and early 2000s, when most of their team selection was based on heavily on analytics and kind of predictable performances of the players. So a lot of the players that you'll see for KKR and RR are not these big splash players, but I call them the percentile players. They give you the consistent performance, and they actually give you higher value and return on the investment on the money that you pay them, right? Because you invest in them. Still, if you were to look at both those teams, they've performed consistently well, KKR more so, and RR especially in the last 3 seasons. So clearly, that's a strategy that's worked really well. With Gujarat Titans, closing remark on them, I couldn't overstate the challenge that they took on walking into season 15 and doing what they did and how they did it. The foresight to be able to pick Hardik Pandya as the captain when he was at the crossroads of his career not only transformed his career, but in turn he transformed Gujarat Titans' fortunes. And they were very deliberate in the whole squad that they picked, starting all the way from the coach to the captain to the players. So they're very, very brand focused, very team culture focused, and hats off to them for what they did in season one. So, I mean, so many lessons for us to learn from the IPL. There's no right or wrong answer, but what you see clearly emerge is a pattern wherein teams play to their strengths, their core values, and they build the franchises rather play to their strengths and their core values, and they build the teams around it. And that's really something for us to think about in terms of how we do it in our own domains.
Love that, Ram. Even I didn't realize there was so much of science behind putting together teams, and there was a clear strategy behind every single IPL team's constitution. Thank you very much for highlighting that. A lot of takeaways for talent leaders from the way IPL teams are constituted, and I think you articulated that brilliantly. Right, Ram. Now, before we wrap up, I'll be failing my duty if I don't put you on the spot and ask you some very tough and pointed questions. Consider this a rapid fire round. So, according to you, who is the greatest cricketer of all times?
Couple Dave.
Okay. Now, let me make that a little tougher. Who do you think is the greatest Indian captain of all times?
Dhoni.
Okay. Now, if you had to pick the greatest captain to lead your IPL team between Kapil Dev and Dhoni, whom would you pick and why?
Dhoni. I think he's just perfected. I mean, he's taken captaincy to an art, unlike anyone else before him. I still think that Kapil Dev was truly inspirational at the time that he played, where India was and where India's position was in world cricket. I think he inspired a generation. So that's why it's a tough choice, right? It's a controversial choice when you have to pick between Kapil and Sachin and Dhoni, right? But I think when he played and the way he played, I think he inspired a generation long before India was ever a power in world cricket. And that's the reason I'll always pick Kapil as the kind of cut above the rest as the greatest Indian cricketer ever produced. I think it's absolutely without question that Dhoni has been the best captain that India's had. I think he's by far the best captain. I mean, in the era across the world, because I mean, just what he's done to the art of captaincy. He's elevated it to an art. The careers that he's created. I mean, the way he's revered about it. I think it's all well deserved. I don't think there's a close second. Though I think Kapil and Saurav Ganguly would be very, very honorable mention there in that category. Probably come the closest second to Dhoni among the Indian captains.
Wonderful. Very well articulated. Ram, so let me ask you the last question. So, who are you planning to place your bet on for IPL 2023?
I don't want to place a bet on anybody, but if I had to kind of pick who's going to get into the playoffs, this is my thing, right? Like, and we're 3 games into the season. I would say Rajasthan, Chennai, Gujarat, and I think the fourth slot. I'm not going to pick Kolkata because I just don't feel that they have the depth. But I could be so wrong in this based on their recent performances, right? Kudos to them for what they've done. I think the fourth spot could be between Lucknow and Bangalore.
Okay. Let's wait for another month to figure out if you were right there, Ram. And that brings us to the end of the show. And I really want to appreciate your time, Ram. I know it's really, really late out there. It's probably early morning. Thanks, Ram, for sharing your insights on the innovation that's happening in the media and entertainment industry, how culture and leadership are key in shaping the industry, and some very important takeaways from sports, and of course the whole aura around the IPL fandom. And to all those who've tuned in, thank you very much for listening to Hireside Chats, and do enjoy the rest of the IPL season. I know that Ram and I most definitely will. Join us next week for another episode as we continue to bring you the latest and the best from the recruitment world. Find us wherever you listen to your favorite podcast. Subscribe to Hireside Chats today. And don't forget to leave a review or share on your socials to help us reach as many years as possible. So until next time, stay tuned, and thank you very much, Ram, once again for your time.
Thanks, Satish. Been a pleasure.